This door to the restroom is now locked. If you want to use the restroom, you can do it, but you need to go out the slider and just around and come in outside, right over there. It's in the hall. The bathrooms are in the hall. That way the service will stay intact and you can still go if you need to dash out there and you know where to do it. So that's the first thing. Second thing is we don't have a practitioner table set up today, but Joyce Thompson is on duty as our Sunday morning practitioner right here. And so if you want prayer following the service, talk to Joyce and she'll find a spot where you can sit quietly and have some privacy for that. So let us get started. Now that I made you all sit down and be quiet, stand up and make noise. Here's what I'd like you to do. Get up, walk around, wish each other Merry Christmas, introduce yourselves, make sure there's nobody left out. And for those of you watching at home, Merry Christmas, and thank you for being here with us this morning. We look forward to seeing you right here at some time when you come to visit. But in the meantime, enjoy this morning with us. We're going to be singing carols. You can sing along at home. I'm sure you know them all, and the words will be on the screen. Just a few minutes. My goodness. Good morning. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. All right. Very good. Okay. You can have a hug.
We got interrupted.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you. All right. Come on back. Now that we've warmed up the room even more with our friendly greetings, come on and take your seats. Now, this is going to be an interesting day, particularly for those of you that are watching online, I think. But because of musicians and their scheduling, we didn't have anybody for Christmas Eve for this morning. But I thought, these are songs we all know. We'll just stand up and sing them a cappella. So we are singing Christmas carols today, and we're going to start with Deck the Halls. So everybody, please stand up. And you're going to see the words on the screen. And bear with me. Maybe Posey can belt it out and help me out here, all right? Okay. Deck the halls with boughs of holly, fa la 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 la. Great! 'Tis the season to be jolly, fa la 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 la. Don we now our gay apparel, fa la 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 la. Troll the ancient Yuletide carol, fa la 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 la. See the blazing Yule before us, fa la 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 la. Strike the harp and join the chorus, fa la 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 la. Follow me in merry measure, fa la 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 la. While I tell of Yuletide treasure, fa la 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 la. Oh, give yourselves a hand. That was fabulous. Very impressive. Very impressive. All right. So now that we've really got the energy going in here, we're going to go ahead and bring it into center. It takes a little while for a bunch of individuals coming together to really become a cohesive group. But once we lift our voices together and we're all blended in the room together, it's kind of happened. So now we're going to turn within and become centered for the morning. And I'm going to invite Marilyn Letzos, our prayer practitioner for the morning, come up and lead us do the opening prayer for us right now. Yeah, the mic's over there. Thank you, Marilyn.
I invite you to simply close your eyes and go deep within. Deep within those sacred halls of the true self. Deep, deep within to that part that always was, that always will be. That part that knows its oneness with the great all that is. Knows that it has never, ever, ever been separated from this unimaginable love that has created everything and continues to create everything out of itself, out of love. And as I know that I am loved into this life, this eternal life, so is every single person. And so as I feel the reality of my own being, I feel the reality of every being because we are so one. I feel that connection in this room from heart to heart to heart to heart, out to all those who are on Zoom. One life, one love, one joy, one peace, one. And this one creates according to our thinking. And so I open my heart right now and I simply give thanks for this opening in anyone who is willing. Opening to the new. Opening to that which is just beyond sight. That's something that is so wonderful, beyond words. And as the light returns to the earth, so a renewed connection is always ready to happen. And I call forth this readiness within everyone this morning for that gift beyond words, that each one has come for, that is waiting to be received through this service, through the eyes of our beloved ones, through the music. It's here. It's here. It's now. And I give thanks for this receptivity that is the key to all. And I let this be. And so it is.
And so it is.
Amen.
Thank you, Marilyn. Now, ordinarily, there's some kind of music here provided by someone else, but not today. We are providing the music for each other. So please stand again as we sing the first Noel. The first Noel, the angel did say, was to certain poor shepherds in fields as they lay, in fields where they lay keeping their sheep on a cold winter's night that was so deep. Noel, 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 born is the King of Israel. They looked up and saw a star shining in the east beyond them far, and to the earth it gave great light, and so it continued both day and night. Noel, 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 born is the King of Israel, and by the light of that same star, 3 wise men came from country far, to seek for a king was their intent, and to follow the star where'er it went. Noel, 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 born is the King of Israel. Very nice. Thank you, everyone. You may be seated. By the way, the word Noel is an interesting word. In the French, it's nouvelle, which means news. But in the Old English, it comes from the word Noel, which is Nowell, and it means a shout of joy. So when the song says the first Noel, the angel did say, because at the beginning in the story, there's only one angel. But then, after the announcement, then suddenly there's a whole bunch of angels in the story. So the first joyful congratulatory thing was the one angel, the first Noel, that announcement. Bet you didn't know that and probably didn't really ever think about it before, but there you go. Now, we're coming up to the end of this year where our theme was living out loud, to live out loud. And I hope that we have all done a little bit more of that this year in terms of being ourselves and letting ourselves be in the world, because that lifts everybody up. And now we're going to go ahead into December. This is embracing our wholeness. This is what we've been talking about all month this month. I've talked about embracing ourselves, others, and the world. And so today, I'm talking about in the name of all that is holy. But before I do that, we're going to light the Advent wreath for one last time. Now, as you know, this is really the fourth Sunday of Advent, but we started a week early. So we've already had the 4 Sundays of Advent, so that when we got to today, and actually I never thought of this at the time, it was totally a mistake, but now that we've done that, we can today light the white central Christ candle also, in recognition of that inspiration that is the birth of light really in all of us. So the first candle, you might remember, was the candle of faith, recognizing everybody that was waiting for something, or the candle of hope, rather. Everybody was hoping for a Savior. The second was the candle of faith for the shepherds and the wise men who were willing to come due to some very weird circumstances, which not everybody probably would have followed. The third Sunday is the Sunday of joy, the rejoicing at the birth of the light. And then finally, last Sunday was the candle of love. This is like the recognition of the Holy Family in the love that was extended with the birth of a baby. And surely that is the case with anybody, any family that has a new baby. I'm doing a baptism actually on the 30th for Kathy and Skip's grandbaby, little granddaughter. And so there's much rejoicing in the world with the birth of that little girl. And finally, we have the Christ candle, which is representative of the light in all of us, and it is the light of peace. And we want to really claim peace, not only in our own hearts, but for others and for the world as well. So this is our completion of the Advent candle, Advent wreath, and the candles together on it. So now, today's service for Christmas Eve is in the name of all that is holy. And one of the interesting things about what's holy is that human beings have considered almost everything you can imagine holy at one time or another. Whether it was birth or death or blood or food or growing things or the earth, the sky, the planets, the stars, the water, anything, herbs, plants, food, other people, all of us together, the entirety of everything, or nothing at all. And in that great nothing, of course, is everything there is. So in the name of all that is holy is kind of in the name of all that is, period. In the name of all that is. So St. Peter, I believe, in this little story has a sense of humor. 3 men died on Christmas Eve and were met by St. Peter at the pearly gates. And since it was Christmas Eve, he said to them, "In honor of this holy season, you must each show me a symbol of Christmas to get into heaven." Now, I very much doubt that St. Peter would ever do that, but in this story, he did that. So the first man fumbled through his pockets, and he found a lighter. And he pulled out the lighter, and he flicked it on, and he said triumphantly, "It's a candle." And St. Peter said, "You may pass," and he let him in. And the second man fumbled around in his pockets, and he pulled out a set of keys and shook them, and he said, "They're bells." St. Peter said, "Very good, come on in, you can come in too." Now, all this time, the third man had been desperately searching in his pockets, in his, everywhere for something, for anything, and finally, greatly relieved, he pulled out a pair of women's panties and waved them around. And St. Peter raised his eyebrows and said, "And just what are those?" And the man said, "They're carols." And St. Peter fell over laughing and said, "Come on in." So I love that story. It may not be entirely appropriate, but I really love it. So I'm glad you liked it too. We human beings have really made everything holy, but in the story, well, what we find in our Christmas now, the traditions that we have, so many of them come from old pagan cultures from all over the world. Holly was a pagan symbol. Mistletoe was a pagan symbol. The Yule log was a pagan symbol. The Christmas tree, the candles, all of that. And then, because we're in the darkest season of the year, most countries in the world have a gift bringer, some kind of mystical gift bringer, who brings a sense of celebration and light and joy and surprise into this dark season. And so Santa Claus, right? And Santa Claus is St. Nicholas, Kris Kringle, Father Christmas, and then he has other names in some countries that are not related to any of those. But the gift bringer sometimes is a creature. It sometimes is a person, but a different kind of person or some kind of mythical being. So those seasonal celebrations do not detract at all from our experience of the holiday. Now, when you come into the nativity stories, then you've got the nativity story from Matthew, which is very down to earth. It's about, like literally, it's about the shepherds who are all watching their flocks. And if you can imagine, these guys they're kind of like, I suppose, the kind of farmer blue-collar workers of the day. And they're out in the field with their sheep in the middle of the night, really. And all of a sudden, there's this light and this presence that declares to them that it's an angel and that this Savior is born. Now, can you imagine? I suppose they might have been drinking some out there to stay warm. Maybe they just, I'm sure they questioned, did you eat those mushrooms the reindeer were eating? I mean, they may have wondered if each other were seeing and hearing what they were seeing and hearing. But of course they were. And then the next thing they knew, the whole sky was full of angels singing. So they were a little, I would guess, a little freaked out. But they went anyway, which is quite interesting. Now, in the Gospel of Luke, Matthew says nothing about the wise men, right? In the Gospel of Luke, we hear nothing about the shepherds. It's only about the wise men who come. And so the question for me is, well, who's holier in this scenario? Now, is it the shepherds? Is it the wise men? Is it just the angels that are holy in this scenario? I don't think so. I think the whole thing is couched in holiness. Now, we recognize over the years that these two stories probably were tacked onto those gospels later. So it may be that the people that added those stories for a particular time and for a particular group of listeners were not actually Matthew and Luke. But nevertheless, we've got these lovely stories. And as I said a few weeks ago, one of the reasons to have a nativity story at all for the birth of Jesus is that at the time there were already avatars that were being worshipped by the people, and all of them had these amazing mystical stories that went along with their birth, you know. So Buddha is supposed to have been born from his mother's side, and there was something about an elephant. You know, each one of those stories is, there's something mystical and amazing. You know, the god Shiva has a son, and his son is Ganesh. And Ganesh is a young man with the head of an elephant. It's a long story. But so that's another one with an amazing story to tell. And at the time in the Roman Empire, there was a god man called Mithras. And Mithras had almost the same story. He was born on December 25th. He was visited by wise men who brought him gold, frankincense, and myrrh, and so on and so on and so on. So borrowing bits and pieces from other stories and then putting them together, and then in one of the Gospels trying to give Jesus a lineage that goes back to King David, who really wasn't such a nice guy. But anyway, in this story, David becomes an important figure as a previous king. And it gives Jesus that kind of panache, you know, that kind of charisma in the telling of the story that would get the people involved. But we know that the truth is they were all holy. They may not have known it. Maybe none of them knew it. Maybe Mary and Joseph didn't know it. And wherever that baby was actually born, if it was in Nazareth, which is more likely, probably holiness wasn't the first thing on their minds. In fact, a priest that I know said that in the original languages, the word is not virgin, it's young woman. Alma, young woman. There's a different word that means, you know, intact, virgin. And that's not the word that they used in the original story. So all this stuff about, you know, this virgin birth, that came later. That came later and got tucked in because Isaiah said, you know, a virgin shall bring forth a child. So had to match up with the prophecy, right? So it wasn't only the angels. I'm kind of ringing over here, sounds like to me. No, you don't hear that? No? Oh, okay. Maybe it's just me. So we know that everything and everyone is holy. And because that's the case, we want to also honor the shepherds. I mean, we've looked at the shepherds, we want to honor the kings. Now, these guys came from Persia, probably. They were Persian priests. They weren't kings. I don't know how the tradition of thinking of them as kings came about. They're magi, which is really kind of high priests of the Zoroastrian tradition. So we're going to sing a verse of this in honor of the guys who really weren't kings. So would you stand up with me, and we'll just do that right now and get it out of the way. So, we three kings of Orient are, bearing gifts we traverse afar, field and fountain, moor and mountain, following yonder star. Oh, star of wonder, star of night, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect light. Terrific. You may be seated. So they see this star, and somehow they associate it with prophecy. And so they decide that they're going to follow it. Why they thought, as Persian priests, that that star meant the birth of a king, I don't know, because I don't think it's really explained anywhere. Somehow they know. So they go to Herod and say, where is he who's born king of the Jews? And Herod's like, what? I'm king of the Jews. So he sends them out to look for this king and says, tell me where he is, because I'll come and worship him too. Actually, meaning, I got to get rid of this kid that is going to be my nemesis. No competition. We know leaders now who do stuff like that. So not a lot has changed. And somehow they're forewarned and they don't go back and tell him. And that's why he sends out the minions to kill all these firstborn male babies, because he wants to get rid of this child. By then, Mary and Joseph have been warned, and they take the baby and they flee to Egypt. And they stay there until Herod dies. And then they come back with the baby. That's the story. I don't know about this Egypt flight thing. I don't know if they were fleeing from Nazareth. I don't know if there was any fleeing going on anywhere. But that's the story. So more miraculous, outcomes for Jesus as well. The idea, though, of Christmas for us in New Thought is the recognition that each year at this time, we invite our soul's rebirth into a higher level of living and vibration and consciousness. And we do that intentionally. We do that inviting each other and by the power of community to help lift each other up and put us at a new set point for our year. And some of that has to do with the celebration and the embodiment. Meister Eckhart said, what good is it to me if this eternal birth of the divine Son takes place unceasingly but does not take place in myself? And what good is it to me if Mary is full of grace if I am not also full of grace? What good is it for me, for the Creator to give birth to her Son, if I do not also give birth to him in my time and my culture? This then, Eckhart says, this then is the fullness of time, when the Son of God is begotten in us. And I don't think that Meister Eckhart meant that for one particular Christmas, something magical was going to happen to everyone, but rather that begotten in us is about a reminder to us and how important it is for us to not only honor each other and the environment and the planet and so on, but ourselves. And it's sometimes the last one that we honor, the last one that we forgive, the last one that we think of in that uplifted kind of way. This fellow said, when my niece was a student teacher, her class of 6-year-olds sang Hark the Herald Angels Sing at a Christmas concert. And the line, God and sinners reconciled, was a real tricky one for that age group to say and to understand and to get. So one little boy at the concert, with a voice that completely drowned out everybody else in the choir, happily belted out, God and sinners dressed in style. Because, everybody dresses up for Christmas, so of course, why wouldn't they be? All dressed up and ready to go. So for me then, one thing that's useful to ask is, what is the holiness in us that the shepherds and wise men represent? If holiness is everywhere, in the name of all that is holy is also in our name. So the shepherds and the wise men first demonstrate faith, as we've talked about. on the basis of some weird things, on the basis of a very big star, very bright star, and on the basis of visions and possible hallucinations, they decided to follow that amazingly. Kind of like Moses deciding to talk to a burning bush. I would probably run the other way. In this case, though, they went for it. And so the second quality in us that's holy, that is reflected in this story, is their intuition. Because you know what it's like when you feel compelled to go someplace or to read something or to call somebody, and it turns out to be exactly the right thing for that time. You can't explain why, but something in you just knew that was the right thing to do at that moment. How many of you have had that experience? Yeah, it's like universal. So that intuition is a part of our holiness that's in all of us. And then also, the three of them represent wonder. Wonder, especially the shepherds. Boy, they were wondering a lot that night, I'll bet. And the wise men who show up are also, I'm sure, astounded. Here they are. And by the way, in one of the ancient texts of that era, it says that exactly the gifts you're supposed to take to a king, if you're going to see a king, are gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So, that got woven into the story. Where was I going with that? Okay, wonder. Wonder. So their experience is one of wonder. I'm sure that when the wise men came and found this baby in a stable with this bright star shining on him and his family, they must have thought, how bizarre. Like, where were they expecting to find a king? Certainly not in the hay manger, in a stable, out in the middle of nowhere, because there was no room for them in the inn, or so we're told. So the holiness they represent in us reflects back to us that there is a Christ presence in all of us. And that Christ presence does not get diminished, damaged, reduced, changed, altered, watered down, or diluted. Nothing can affect it in that way. So that brilliant light, that's us. That's what we're doing. Now, many years ago, when I was a new minister, Alan Cohen, some of you might know that name, Alan Cohen had mailed out to everybody on his mailing list a little booklet. And the little booklet had a story in it that was called A Christmas Story. And it was just so sweet and touching. And I read it a number of times, not in its entirety because it's long, but I read it a number of times around the holidays to my congregation. And the fellow who wrote the story lived in Little River in Northern California. And we were in, I think, Fort Bragg once, a long time ago. And there at a table where this holiday fair was happening was Jay Frankston, the author of this little book, with his wife, and a bunch of the actual book. So I got one, which I absolutely could not find yesterday, but I did find the story, and I want to share some of it with you, because if anything is a recognition of the Christ presence in others, this story is it, interestingly. He says, "There's nothing so beautiful as a child's dream of Santa Claus." I know, I often had that dream, but I was Jewish and we didn't celebrate Christmas. It was everyone else's holiday, and I felt left out, like a big party I wasn't invited to. So when I got married and I had kids, I decided to make up for it. I started with a 7-foot tree, all decked out with lights and tinsel and the Star of David on top to soothe those whose Jewish feelings were frayed by the display. And for them, it was a Hanukkah bush. And it warmed my heart to see the glitter, because now the party was at my house and everyone was invited. But something was missing, something big and round and jolly with jingle bells and ho, ho, ho. So I bought a bolt of bright red cloth and strips of white fur, and my wife made a costume. Inflatable pillows rounded out my skinny frame, but no amount of makeup could turn my face into a merry old Santa. I went around looking at department store impersonations sitting on their thrones with children on their laps and flashbulbs going out, and I wasn't satisfied with the way they looked either. After much effort, I located a mask maker, and he had just the thing for me. A rubberized Santa mask, complete with whiskers and flowing white hair. It was not the real thing, but it was genuine enough to live up to a child's dream of St. Nick. When I tried it on, something happened. I looked in the mirror, and there he was, big as life, the Santa of my childhood. And it was me. I felt like Santa, like I became Santa. My posture changed. I leaned back and pushed out my false stomach. My head tilted to one side, and my mouth got deeper and richer with "Merry Christmas, everyone." For 2 years, I played Santa for my children, to their mixed feelings of fright and delight, and my total enjoyment. And when the third year rolled around, the Santa in me had grown into a personality of his own, and he needed more room than I had given him. So I sought to accommodate him by letting him do his thing for other children. I called up orphanages and children's hospitals and offered services for free, but we don't need Santa. We have all sorts of donations from foundations, and thank you for calling. And the Santa in me felt lonely and useless. And then, one late November, in the afternoon, I went to the mailbox on the corner of the street to mail a letter, and I saw this pretty little girl trying to reach for the slot. She was maybe 6 years old. "Mommy, are you sure Santa will get my letter?" she asked. "Well, you addressed it to Santa Claus, North Pole, so he should get it," the mother said, and she lifted her little girl so she could stuff the letter into the box. And my mind began to whirl. All those thousands of children who wrote to Santa Claus at Christmas time, whatever became of their letters? One phone call to the main post office answered my question. They told me that as of the last week of November, an entire floor of the post office was needed to store those letters in huge sacks that came from different sections of the city. The Santa in me went, ho, ho, ho. And we headed down to the post office. And there they were, thousands upon thousands of letters, with or without stamps, addressed to Santa Claus or St. Nick or Kris Kringle, scribbled on wrapping paper or neatly written on pretty stationery. And I rummaged through them and laughed. Most of them were gimme, gimme, gimme letters. Like, I want a pair of roller skates and a Nintendo, and a G.I. Joe and a personal computer and a small portable TV and whatever else you can think of. Many of them had the price alongside each item, with or without the sales tax. And then there were the funny ones like, "Dear Santa, I've been a good boy all of last year, but if I don't get what I want, I'll be a bad boy all of next." And I became a little flustered by the demands and the greed of so many spoiled children. But the Santa in me heard a voice from inside the mail sack, and I continued going through the letters, one after the other, until I came upon one which jarred and unsettled me. It was neatly written on plain white paper, and it said, "Dear Santa, I hope you get my letter. I am 11 years old, and I have 2 little brothers and a baby sister. My father died last year, and my mother is sick. I know there are many who are poorer than we are, and I want nothing for myself, but could you send us a blanket? Because Mommy's cold at night. Susie." And a chill went up my spine, and the Santa in me cried, "I hear you, Susie. I hear you." And I dug deeper into those sacks and came up with another 8 such letters, all of them calling from the depths of poverty. I took them with me and went straight to the nearest Western Union office and sent each child a telegram. "Got your letter. We'll be at your house on Christmas Day. Wait for me, Santa. I knew I couldn't possibly fill the need of all those children, and it wasn't my purpose to do so. But if I could bring them hope, if I could make them feel that their cries did not go unheard and that someone out there was listening. So I budgeted a sum of money and went out and bought toys. I wasn't content with the 5 and 10 cent variety. I wanted something substantial, something those children could only dream of, like an electric train or a microscope or a huge doll of the kind they advertised on television. And on Christmas Day, I took out my sleigh and let Santa do his thing. Well, it wasn't exactly a sleigh. It was a car, and my wife drove me around because with all those pillows and toys, I could barely manage to get in the back seat. My first call took me to the outskirts of the city. The letter had been from a Peter Barsky, and all it said was, "Dear Santa, I am 10 years old, and I am an only child. We've just moved to this house a few months ago, and I have no friends yet. I'm not sad because I'm poor, but because I'm lonely. I know you have many things to do and people to see, and you probably have no time for me, so I don't ask you to come to my house or bring anything, but could you send me a letter so I know you exist?" My telegram read, "Dear Peter, not only do I exist, but I'll be there on Christmas Day. Wait for me, Santa." We parked at the house and drove past it, parked around the corner, and then Santa got out with his big bag of toys slung over his shoulder and tramped through the snow. The house was wedged in between 2 tall buildings. The roof was of corrugated metal, and it was really more of a shack than a house. I walked through the gate, up the front steps, and rang the bell. A man opened the door. He was in his undershirt, and his stomach bulged out of his pants. "Boje moi," he exclaimed in astonishment. That's Polish, by the way. And his hand went to his face. Please, he stuttered, "please, the boy, at Mass, church, I go get him. Please wait." And he threw a coat over his bare shoulders, and assured that I would wait, he ran down the street in the snow. Pan, proszę, please come. I heard this man, Barsky, across the way, and Santa crossed and walked into the house, and the boy Peter just stood there and looked at me. "You came," he said. "I wrote and you came." He turned to his parents. "I wrote and he came." And he repeated it over and over again. "I wrote and he came." And when he recovered, I spoke with him about loneliness and friendship and gave him a chemistry set, which seemed to be what he would go for, and a baseball. And he thanked me profusely. And his mother, a heavy-set, Slavic-looking woman, asked something of her husband in Polish. My parents were Polish, so I speak a little and understand a lot. "From the North Pole," I said in Polish. She looked at me in astonishment. "You speak Polish?" she asked. "Of course," I said. "Santa speaks all languages." And I left them in joy and wonder. Now he goes on through the story, and he talks about how the managers of department stores began to ask him if he had a lot of children because of all the toys. And when he explained what he was doing, they started giving him everything that was in a broken package. They gave it to him really cheap at first, and then they started giving him tons of stuff as the numbers of kids went up and up and up. And he says, "I did this for 12 years, going through the letters to Santa at the post office, listening for the cries of children muffled in unopened envelopes, letters from children who were often past the age of believing, yet wrote a last farewell to Santa, to childhood, to hope, answering the call of as many as I could, and frustrated at not being able to answer them all." Let's see. And on my last call, a number of years ago. I knew there were 4 children in the family, and I came prepared. The house was small and sparsely furnished. The kids had been waiting all day, staring at that telegram and repeating to their skeptical mother, "He'll come, Mommy, he'll come." And as I rang the doorbell of the house, it lit up with joy and laughter and, "He's here, he's here." And the door swings open and they all reach for my hands and hold on. "Hiya, Santa, hiya, Santa. We just knew you'd come." And these poor kids are all beaming with happiness. And I take each one of them onto my lap and speak to them of rainbows and snowflakes and tell them stories of hope and waiting and give them each a toy. And all the while, there's this 5th child standing in the corner, a cute little girl with blonde hair and blue eyes. And when I'm through with the others, I turn to her and say, "You're not part of this family, are you?" And she shakes her head sadly and whispers, "No." "Come closer, child," I say, and she comes a little closer. "What's your name?" "Lisa." "How old are you, Lisa?" 7. "Come sit on my lap." She hesitates, but she comes over and I lift her up and sit her on my lap. "Did you get any toys for Christmas?" I ask. "No," she says with puckered lips. So I take out this big, beautiful doll and I say, "Here, do you want this doll?" "No," she says, and she leans over to me and whispers in my ear, "I'm Jewish." And I nudge her and whisper in her ear, "I'm Jewish too. Do you want this doll?" And she's grinning from ear to ear and nods with wanting and desire and takes the doll and hugs it and runs out. It's been a long time since I last put on my Santa suit, but I feel that Santa has lived with me and given me a great deal of happiness all those years. And now, when Christmas rolls around and he comes out of hiding long enough to say, "Ho, ho, ho," and a Merry Christmas to you, my friend, and I say to you now, Merry Christmas, my friends. Isn't that so dear? Our founder, Ernest Holmes, wrote a Christmas letter, and in it he said, "Christmas is for remembrance." The love manifesting through our gifts to each other typifies the offering of life, the givingness of spirit to its creation. The hands of the eternal are outstretched through our hands, and the heart of the infinite beats in the human breast. But the giver must give of himself, for the gift without the giver is bare. So let's take a moment now to say the morning affirmation together. Just stand up with me right now and we'll do that. Everywhere I look, I see the face of God. Everything is holy. Everything can awaken me to the truth of God's presence. I welcome that light in me and all around me. I'm lovingly guided, guarded, and protected within the divine wholeness. And so it is. You may be seated. Now, this is our sacred giving time. And so I want to invite the ushers to, I would say come forward, but I think you're starting at the back. Is that right? Do you know what you want to do, Paula? Or Linda? Okay, it's up to you two. Where do you want to start? Front, back? The back is fine. So they will direct you because it's a little different since there aren't aisles on the outside, but they'll figure it out. And for those of you online, if you would like to make a special Christmas donation, you can text it to the number on the screen. And that goes for us in the room too. And other methods of giving are listed on the back of your bulletin this morning as well. But what we want to do is especially be conscious of the blessing that we're giving and of the power of the word. When we speak our word with a recognition that this is a powerful thing that we do, we imbue what we're sending out into the world with that vibration of wholeness with which we've blessed it. So we're going to bless everything that's being given. And by the way, if you're here for the first time today, your presence here with us is your gift. So you're just going to put your hands on your own heart as the gift. For those of you that are giving something specific today, you can hold that over your heart, or hold it, if you're giving it with a loved one, you can hold it together. And for all those who give automatically or in some other way, just put your hands over your heart also, as we say this giving affirmation and blessing together. This gift I give is God in action. I now send it forth to bless and to prosper. I know that everywhere it goes, it is creating a world living in love, one heart and one thought at a time. And so it is. And of course, we are the music. So please begin, and we're going to sing Silent Night while they're doing that. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round yon virgin mother and child, holy infant, so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly peace. Silent night, holy night, shepherds quake at the sight, glory stream from heaven afar, heavenly hosts sing hallelujah. Christ our teacher is born. Christ our teacher is born. Silent night, holy night, child of God, love's pure light, radiant beams from thy holy face, with the dawn of redeeming grace. Jesus, brother of all, Jesus, brother of all. That last note's a little low. So now, come together here. We do, all of us together, accept these gifts that have been given to Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living. It's our intention to send them out into the world with an energy that allows people to begin to see the holy everywhere they look, including in the mirror. And so it is. If you're here for the very first time this morning, we don't have welcome packets for you today. And so you have to come next week. And we'll try to have some here next week. But also come in January when we'll be back at the Corte Madera Community Center on Tamalpais, and we promise to have them then. So what happens if you get a welcome packet, you fill out the blue card inside, turn it in at the welcome table, and you'll get a little book as a gift. That's a thank you for coming. And if you're getting it, after you've been a new person, it's a thank you for coming again, and also an invitation to keep coming, because we love to welcome you. And I want to thank everybody that was involved in allowing this morning to come together so well. And I especially want to point out that the practitioner is not ? Actually, the practitioner is Marilyn Letzos. And she very graciously stepped up this morning because we had a last minute change. But all of these folks are what make this morning work so well. And of course, as I said earlier, Joyce Thompson is our practitioner for the morning. If you would like prayer following the service, come and talk to Joyce, and she will find a quiet place where you can have a prayer with her. I want to invite you once again to join Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living's Meetup page. Now, if you don't have Meetup, it's free. You go to meetup.com, you sign up. You know, that's typical. Then you look for Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living. And when you find that page, you can join it, which means that you'll be able to see all the events that are coming up, and you'll get little emails reminding you of stuff that's coming up. And right on that website, you can click attend or attending, and that lets everybody know how many people are going to show up, which is a wonderful thing for us to know in advance. So I really encourage you. You might find out more about what's going on than you do by not reading the newsletter that you get every week. Now, next week we will be here once again. We'll be meeting in this room, and there will be a guest speaker because we're going up to Bellingham to be with my son's family tonight, and we will be taking the rest of the week off. So next Sunday, our dear friend, Reverend Catherine Sachs, is going to be speaking. And so she will be right here next week. And we hope that you all come back and be here with her. And then, of course, in January, I'll be back and we'll be at the community center. Also, we have a date coming up at the San Francisco Marin Food Bank. As you know, we pack boxes of food over at the warehouse in San Rafael. Contact Ellen Nicosia if you would like to be one of the participants. It's only 2 hours, and it's on Tuesday, January 9th from noon to 2 p.m. So Ellen has to turn in those names a week ahead. So when we hit the beginning of January, if you need some time to think about it, make sure that by the 1st, you let her know if you want to be part of the group that's going to be going on the 9th over there. And she would be happy to accommodate that. So there are all the ways on the screen to contact Ellen. Leslie Giannetti is reprising the sacred grieving workshop that she and Laurie Greer did in the past. A lot of people were looking forward to having that opportunity again. The sign-up sheet isn't here this morning. Hopefully it will be here next week, but that doesn't happen until the last Sunday in January from 1 to 3 p.m. Now, if you were here last week or so, my slide said January 21st. That's wrong. It's the 28th. So January 28th, it will be at the Sunrise Center, which is over on Tamalpais Boulevard also. And Leslie's here this morning, so if you have questions about the sacred grieving, Leslie, give a wave. If you have questions about that workshop, talk to Leslie, and she can give you more information about it as well. We're getting close to the end of the year, but if you're someone that has charitable distributions to do before the end of the year, now's the time to do them. And you want to get them in before the 31st so that you get credit on this year's tax return for those donations. We at Golden Gate would be over the moon to receive some of your special distributions at this time of year. So if you'd like to do that for us, feel free. And also, because I'm going to be away this Wednesday night, there will be no Zoom meditation. It's dark this week, but it'll be back the following Wednesday at 7:15 in the evening on Zoom. And you can always access that from the calendar page on our website. Finally, I don't think we have the prayer request box, but what you could do is there are lots of note cards over there by the door and pens. You could take one of those, put your name, your email, your phone number, and what your prayer request is, and give them to Joyce because she's on duty at the prayer table today. So she'll become the prayer box too. And she can receive your written ones, and she can take you aside if you would like a spoken prayer as well. You can also request prayer from the website. But this is the hot thing to do today, for sure. All right, so we're coming to the end of this morning. Please stand and join me in the closing blessing and the final song today. So we say together, I now walk so that whoever walks beside me dwells in the presence of God, and whoever places a hand in mine is lifted, and whoever thinks of me is illumined with God consciousness, for spirit and all people and I are one eternally, and so it is. And now, we wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Glad tidings to you and your kin. Glad tidings for Christmas and a Happy New Year. Now bring us some figgy pudding, now bring us some figgy pudding, now bring us some figgy pudding and bring it out here. Glad tidings we bring to you and your kin. Glad tidings for Christmas and a Happy New Year. We won't go until we get some. We won't go until we get some. We won't go until we get some. So bring it out here. Good tidings we bring to you and your kin. Glad tidings for Christmas. And this is the last one, I promise. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Woo! Merry Christmas, everyone, and Happy New Year. Have a wonderful holiday.